Hey, good evening, everybody. Chris Starcheski, co-host of Unlock the Middle. We've got a red zone action-packed conversation with you tonight. Dean Packard, co-host and co-creator of Unlock the Middle, is not with us tonight. He's actually taking a little bit of R&R, well-deserved. He is down in South Florida for the weekend. So we've got Josh Tovar with us tonight. We've got Dr. Jeff Springer, Kimberly Odom, and Maggie Tovar with us. We're going to be getting down and dirty, talking about some topics related to competition, maybe the purpose that we got into admin, and talk a little bit about leadership. But hey, let's go ahead and have our folks introduce themselves to you. Jeff Springer, you were the first one in the room tonight, so I'll give you the floor for a sec. Introduce yourself to the world and let us know who you are and where you're at.
Well, Chris, thanks for having me. This is exciting. I've been watching a lot of you through social media, trying to keep up with you, especially as we were talking about in the pre-show with all of the with this pandemic has really opened up the doors for people reaching out, I think, a lot more. And so I'm from the Houston area in Texas. I tell everybody I'm a repurposed principal. I've been out since 2016, but still have one foot in the door doing professional development. I do some executive coaching and I like to play. So I love what you guys are doing. Appreciate and value what you guys do each and every day.
Thank you so much. Kimberly.
Yes, so I'm Kimberly Odom. I am the proud principal of Independence Elementary School in Rock Hill, South Carolina. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. This is very new for me. I'm certainly a social media novice. So I appreciate the invitation, Josh, to kind of get me acclimated to this medium of communicating with folks. Trying to think of what else. But elementary school principal, have been in education for 22 years, in leadership for about 11.
Wow, fantastic. Thanks for joining in tonight. Maggie.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Margarita Tovar. You can call me Maggie, though, if Margarita is too long. But I think we can all say Margarita, so you can also say that. Yeah, I'm from Houston, Texas. My family and I originated from Monterrey, Mexico. And so for me, being a daughter of immigrants is not just a critical element of my identity, but it's also part of how I lead and the areas of work that I'm attracted to. And so while I did have the privilege of being a principal in Houston ISD, I recently transitioned to Corsicana, Texas, which is just an hour below Dallas. And I work with 3 improvement required campuses. So I'm the school improvement liaison. I love transformational work. And so I'm excited to dive into the questions and the topics that we have today. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us. And last but certainly not least, the staple, the myth, the man, the legend, Josh Tovar.
Hey, everybody, Josh Tovar, proud principal of Memorial Pathway Academy here in Garland, USA, Garland ISD. Welcoming everybody on Cinco de Mayo. Okay, here it goes. History lesson number 1. It's not Mexican independence. Stop saying that. We don't like that. And it's hardly not practiced by everybody. It's the Mexicans beating the French troops, all right? That's a battle in Puebla, a city over there. So please stop saying that. I just say it's not Mexican. But we digress. Welcome everybody to the Red Zone, where we're going to score another touchdown, ready to learn from all of these leaders. You heard their background. You bring their experiences, because you know what? We're only stronger together. So everybody from Alaska to Hawaii, from Maine, all the way down to Florida, let's lock in together for the next couple of minutes, making sure that we get new tools for our tool chest so that our students can succeed. What do you think about that, Chris?
I think it's a fantastic opportunity to get into
May
this.
I add something?
Yeah.
I think, Josh, we need to clarify that we're not related.
It's just one of those things.
I get asked so often, are you related to Josh? No, the only thing we have in common is that we're Mexican and that we are rock star principals. That's it.
Well, I think I think that's family right there.
It is. We're pretty much family. We met through Twitter.
That's awesome. That's that's a good point. And there aren't many other Starcheskis out there who are school principals, so I don't have that problem that you both have. But my wife is an amazing educator, and we'll get her on the show at some point. She likes to stay in the back. Well, hey, we're talking about setting up for success. We're talking about opportunities to be better together. Let's dive into the concept and the topic of, schools in competition. School A versus school B. Is competition amongst schools a good thing? And if so, why? And if not, how come? Who wants to roll?
Well, let me tell you. It's just in the nature of student success for me. What does that mean? I've been honored that the Lord has placed me in different schools. I think I'm on my 14th school in 30 years. And I've been in National Blue Ribbon schools, exemplary schools, and D- schools with horrible climate surveys. So I've been in both sides of it. And let me tell you, I like what Ken Williams says. You tell me what the game is, and I'm going to play with the cards you deal me. Because you know what? Those are the kids at that school at that moment. And if I'm living in that school, like Ken Williams calls it, that school, and people talk about those kids, I love that. Because you know what? I'm going to prove to you one thing, that my kids, my familia, will live up to the top standard. And I will make sure that everybody within our community lives up to that standard. Doesn't matter. You know what? I hear a lot of people also say, when I was growing up, we didn't know we were poor. We didn't know that. And then we started getting those Thanksgiving boxes. And then we found out, hey, I was poor, but we never knew that. Well, in El Paso, where I come from, everyone is a Title I school. We don't know what that means till we start going to conferences and we deal with East Coast people. And a lot of East Coast people say that's like a dirty thing. Because they were like, oh, we're a Title I school. Oh, it doesn't matter. You know what? Those kids deserve the best. Doesn't matter what label people put on us. It's our job as educators. The second that we sign that contract, the very first day is that we raise the standard for ourselves and most importantly for the future of America, those kids. So for me, I like to know what an A school is. And I want to be up there and show our kids, you are not better than them. You're equal and have the ability to reach that status and that standard. And who gets paid for that? Every single last person, the custodian, the cafeteria manager, the instructional aides, the registrar, the secretary, the administrator, everyone gets paid to raise that school to not be that school, but to be an A school. I don't know what you feel about testing. I don't care. That's the game in town. I don't care what you feel about distinctions, no distinctions, blue ribbon, no blue ribbon. You know what? I just want my kids, when they leave our home, our school, to be the best version of themselves. And that includes from the top person in the main chair to the custodian, but we're all the best for our kids.
That's really good, Josh. I'm ready. I'm ready to suit up. Put me in, coach. So you got me fired up. I think you're so right. I said wherever you kids are, we look to add value. What is it that what is the very best that they possibly can be? And I think if a lot of times you have to point to, as you said, what does an A school look like? I mean, what does an exemplary school look like? What's a blue ribbon school? I think we all have that intrinsic motivation to be the very best we possibly can, but we also want to see, okay, how do we measure up to other? I mean, I think there's two things. I said, I think you have to build it from within, but you also have to look at the outside. And kids have to, first of all, understand their own belief, their own value, their own completeness in order, to achieve that. It's kind of like the hierarchy. We used to call it the hierarchy of eminence. We wanted to be not only excellent, we wanted to be eminent, because in my opinion, you can be excellent on accident every once in a while. And what eminence is the repeat of excellence over and over and over again, where it becomes just a standard. When excellence becomes a standard, you become eminent. When people start pointing to you, and you become the A school. or the very best D school, whatever category you're in, whatever your comparison group is. And I'll be honest with you, one of the reasons I probably would still be in education, I don't know. I mean, I still technically am. You work in higher ed, and I'm still doing professional development. But if it wasn't for high stakes testing, because in my opinion, there's a lot of ways to measure a school. You know, in high stakes testing is, unfortunately, it is the game. It is what the public measures. So we have to play that game, but there are other ways to win the game too, and culture, and across the board, those of us in Texas, Josh, you'll know this, Maggie, you would be familiar with the UIL academics. I always felt like UIL academics I wish that our state would look at that, because to me, from, ready writing to one act play to marching contest to mathematics, so it was a true snapshot of a school. So we emphasized it, and whatever you emphasize is what you're going to get. And we became, we were the school that showed up on Saturday with 2 buses of kids, and everybody was going, who are these guys? How can they get these kids to be here, show up at school at 7 a.m. and spend a Saturday doing academic competitions? We were the school that showed up and said, oh my gosh, the Magnolia, and we weren't, we put the in Magnolia High School, and that's what we used to tell people.
That's awesome.
I'll elaborate on something that Jeff mentioned, and it's when you remove state accountability, how do you as a leader measure success, right? And so I think that as leaders, we have to take competition and internalize it. And obviously, we know that the state is looking in, for example, in Texas and state accountability, they are comparing us to similar schools. That's part of Domain 3 for those of us that are familiar with state accountability. But even within that metric, they compare us by socioeconomic status. Well, if you know poverty, there are different types of poverty. We may both be 70% economically disadvantaged, but maybe you struggle with a higher percentage of ELs that are coming that I don't. And so we have to kind of internalize that, know the game, know the numbers, but we cannot let that deter our culture and our climate. And I think that we do have to build healthy competition within our own children. And I appreciate Jeff telling us about the word that he elaborated, which is not excellence, it's what is it? I want to remember it.
Eminence.
I'm going to look that up tonight, because that, when I was a principal, that's what we tried to cultivate. You want to be better than you were yesterday as a student. Last year, I got a 70% in math. This year, I'm shooting for an 80. And so when you build an intrinsic competition within themselves, you prepare them for the competition that they will face when they graduate. So I think we have to measure the and kind of balance as leaders the competition from outside, and then how we shift it interiorly in our school.
Fantastic. Okay, Kimberly, your turn.
Yeah, I was just going to add, thank you. I was just going to add, it's interesting, this topic of competition, because I recently had a conversation with some colleagues, and a comment was made. I shouldn't feel like I need to be in competition with, the people in this room. And so I think for me, I started thinking it's really hard for me to be in competition with others. Like, I don't know what my colleagues are doing, because I'm so focused on my school and what my kids are doing and making sure that they receive what they need. I can't look at someone else's website. Now, to your point, Josh, I do want to see what amazing things are taking place in other public schools throughout the country. So I will, research and find out, best practices in schools that are similar to mine. But as a regular practice, I don't ever feel myself feeling the need to, compete or be in competition with schools around me, just because, like I said, I can't, maybe the plate is too full and I can't be consumed with that. So.
One of the things I think about with the concept of competition, and we hit on all those ideas already. Thank you. But, those metrics of success, right? The state testing, I've gone on my rants about my beliefs about that, and it's not a positive belief around how standardized testing works. But we sit down and we look at funding mechanisms, right? Here in Massachusetts, we go through, we've got our state aid, which is fine, and then we've got our local contribution, and there's a minimum local contribution per, your student enrollment. And when certain towns match the minimum contribution and neighboring towns provide excessive contribution compared to that minimum, you've got a situation of the haves versus the have-nots. So when we sit down, even though we may have a common socioeconomic balance between the two towns, one town may have a very high tax rate and have additional revenue sources compared to the neighboring town. And they're able to really provide more in the way of education. And it's kind of frustrating when your town provides the minimum and you have to scrape the nickels together just to get Ticonderoga pencils as opposed to the staple rubberized pencils. You know what I'm talking about. And all those bells and whistles. But for me, competition really comes down to competitive advantage for the kids, right? What is it that they can do that no one else can do because our district or our school does this so well? We are known for this, and we are great because of it. Many schools have many different areas that they can be great in, but to be able to provide a well-rounded education, celebrate the performing arts, celebrate the athletics, celebrate the academic talents, build business partnerships so kids can see the real world, and not have an expectation that success is going to college. Success is being a productive contributor. Could be college, could be the military, could be the workforce right out. Could be getting your electrician's license, going to that voc tech school and pursue something that you're passionate about. So, we sit down and think about it. I love the idea of eminence, just to echo everybody's lauds of Jeff's statement, much more about experience than it is about competition, District A to District B.
Hey, Chris, can I just build up on what Maggie just said right now, and I bring a personal example from this in regards to the previous campus. When I mention competition, I want to make sure that I'm specific on my statement. When I walked into my previous campus, which was a D- school with a horrible climate survey, and I was told a stereotypical Hollywood movie kind of campus, the kids would say, "Oh, we're only this school." That's why I make a connection to Ken Williams. If you don't follow him, please follow him and follow his cowboy hat. And you'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I and the family there had to convince those kids, like Maggie said, that they need to believe in themselves. Because whenever we would compete, Jeff, in this sport, whenever we compete with them in theater arts, in flags, oh, we lost. Why? Because we're that school. Oh, we are only that. That's our job as coaches, the cafeteria person, the custodian, the instructional aide, everybody. We're all coaches to lift up the spirit of that child that's been beaten down by the system, by whatever it was that created that noise that brought those kids down 2,550. It is our jobs now to clean it off and bring them back up, because diamonds are created through pressure, and it's our job to make sure that we create that pressure, positive pressure, that they have self-pride. And I want our kids, whatever kids it is that when they stand close to that A school, that football team that is 55,000 and 0, that band that has 7,000 people with carousels, and we don't have that it doesn't matter who you are. When you're out there, you're the best version of yourself. And we have a tendency of forgetting that in public education, because for some reason, the school that I walked in before, they were beat down to that point. So when I moved on to where I'm currently at, in 3 years we went up 3-letter grades, with a school of 89% free and reduced lunch, all Hispanic, 500 kids coming in from another country every single last day. So I'm advising everybody out there to not forget that whole concept of the why. And so many books are written about it, but we forget about it. Hence, all the schools that we see all over that are F schools, D- schools, teachers are miserable at that school. They blame the kids for it. And I say it because I'm talking to you about the climate survey that I left when I arrived at that school.
Yeah.
So when I say competition, it's competition within ourselves to inspire those kids to walk on fire for themselves and for their community.
Yeah, you never know what you can achieve until you know where the bar is set, right? The whole concept of the Pygmalion effect. Expect this from the kids. Guess what? They're going to be reaching for that bar, and most of the kids are going to grab on and be able to propel themselves over. But if you set the bar low, well, yeah, they can reach that bar, but we've got to maintain high expectations of rigor and a can-do, a why-not perspective. And with that, we're all winning all the time. We always win. It's a great concept.
Yeah, Josh, I love that. And I love what also Maggie said one word that I kind of resonate with when you said healthy competition. So what does that mean? That doesn't mean win at all costs. It doesn't mean deny lose your integrity in the battle. There still has to be dignity and all of this, and there has to be other lessons along the way as we build this culture together. Someone mentioned, one of our listeners mentioned collaboration over competition. Well, I don't think it's collaboration over competition. I think it's collaboration that leads to that competition. I think that's a very essential aspect of competition is building collaboration and teamwork and working together, both at all different levels. I think Kimberly mentioned it in her introduction at the very beginning that she was in education for 22 years and leadership 11. I have to say, no, you've been in leadership for 22 years because you're a leader. We have to build leaders at every level, and students are leaders. We have a choice. They can be good leaders or bad leaders, but if they influence more than one person or they influence one person, you're a leader. And so when I do professional development I was at Uvalde High School this year and talking to the staff there and saying, you're a leader. Teachers sometimes they want to shirk that role. They think that's the administrator. No, we can't do this. The 5 of us or the 7 of us or the 2 of us or 1 of us, depending how big your school is or what level, we can't do this by ourselves. We have to do this all together. There's leadership at all levels. And so starting with our students and our teachers and our administrators and our district level community, all pointing in the right direction. And when that happens, when that collaboration happens, when everybody feels valued, then we win. And sometimes those wins are not necessarily measured in state testing results, but they're going to inevitably because they can't help but move the dial, either direct, if not directly, indirectly, and over a period of time. So I also remember having conversations with some of my teachers on staff that were in charge of programs, like maybe a band director or a large group, extracurricular, and sometimes the competition within programs was not healthy. And I would try to, as a leader, we got to turn that and say, look, we're here to celebrate each other within these walls and under this roof. Because typically outside those doors, they're not our friends. They're not, but in here, we've got to contribute to building each other up, celebrating each other's programs, aspiring, to be the very best. But at the same time, as Josh said, taking a peek at what else is going on out there, because there's nothing wrong with aspiring to be like fill in the blank and not just be fill in the blank,
When I was a principal, I used to call it, I'm going to find my rabbit. For me personally, because I'm competitive. And if you're a leader, you are competitive. It's in your nature. And so I would always look at schools around me. And my first year being a principal, I said, okay, that school, I won't name it, that school has the best music program and fine arts. And they're right down the street from me. I am going to be better than them. So I studied them. I studied what the principal did. I searched partnerships. We expanded our fine arts program. Parents started coming. I didn't have to go out and say, we're competing against you. We took it internally, that vision, right? And so I always used to say to myself, I need to chase the rabbit. That's my rabbit. My next year was the COVID year. And I was shooting to be, my school had been an F-rated school for 5 years when I got it. We got it the first year to a D, then to a C. That year I wanted to take it to a B. And the pandemic happened. So just in time, I read the book by Simon Sinek called The Infinite Game, or The Infinite Mindset, something like that. But it talks about how when we are working with people, we need to be careful about comparing ourselves to businesses and metrics that are numeric only. Because when those goals are removed, how do we define success? Like I mentioned earlier. And I bought that book for my staff. We read it. And I told them, more than ever this year, we have to measure success ourselves. We're going to shoot for the B, of course, but accountability might not happen. So how will we know we were successful this year? And we all agreed staff retention of highly effective teachers, better culture, better climate, better collaboration within ourselves, and obviously being the best elementary for virtual instruction. And so we found this virtual school that was in another state that had lessons that were interactive with Pear Deck and Nearpod, and that was our rabbit. So every year we pick something. I mean, obviously I was leading that, but it was never negative. It was just, we need a shooting, like a North Star. And so that book just came at the perfect time because testing was not going to count. So I recommend you guys read that book. It's really good. And I think it's called The Infinite Game or The Infinite Mindset by Simon Sinek.
And part of that whole mindset of having successful team members around us, you know, people don't know this, or you might know this, but there is free agency amongst our team members. What does that mean? Hot commodity instruction in the classroom are highly coveted by administrators. And you start going through that whole ethical dilemma question, right? Do I talk to another principal's teacher? Don't I talk to them? Or that teacher looks at that other campus, the opposite of that campus, and says, you know what? I want to take my talents over here. I want to pull a LeBron, all right? I want to take my talents now over here. So what is your belief about free agency, Kimberly, in regards to teachers leaving, principals talking to other principals, teachers? Have you seen that? What is your experience with that?
So we're kind of in the midst of that right now. I think that it's absolutely appropriate when done the right way. For me, I want to be very respectful of my colleagues and recognize that, if I have if they have a staff member who's very interested in coming to join my team, to give them an opportunity to be able to fill that position. So I think that, it's appropriate. And, there may be different things at other schools that attract an educator to that campus. And I think that, potentially, because in outside of education, in most professions, this is something that is the norm. I think sometimes in education, we try to play it very safe and want to be very kind to others. But I think we need to recognize that we may not be the right spot for certain teachers. And so allow them the opportunity to be able to explore and find what's going to be the best fit for them. So I think that it's appropriate if done the right way. I always want to make sure that I maintain positive professional relationships with my colleagues when we're, in this season of hiring and recruiting, et cetera. So,
Maggie?
If you don't want to work here, you do not have to stay. I never took offense if someone did not want to work at our school. I was like, absolutely, how can I help you? Do you need me to write you a letter of recommendation? Do you want me, how can I assist you? Because I want you to be where you want to be, right? My first year, I lost about 10 teachers. And so, part of me said, okay, they're just not bought onto the vision. So it was tough, right? And it was a staff of about 40 people. So I set myself a goal that I mentioned. Teacher retention was going to be my next, metric of success for myself, but effective teachers. So I always talk to my staff, you can go wherever you want to be, but if you're here with me, please just tell me throughout the year how I'm not supporting you or I am not meeting your expectations, because I don't want to be surprised, when you're leaving. I want to make sure that we have this conversation. We'll have an exit interview, but that's too late. So when I see a principal, and because I lived in myself, that their first year they lose a lot of teachers, and then the second year they lose a lot of teachers, and the third year they lose a lot of teachers, then I start thinking, okay, now maybe it's time to reflect on what that school might be needing, that people are just going out the door. By my second and third year, I had a line of people wanting to come work at our school, 100% economically disadvantaged, second lowest income zip code in the city of Houston. Why? Because, like I mentioned earlier, we focus on being better ourselves. And the competition is always there. On Twitter, teachers talk. So, I think that it's, I never took it to offense if someone wanted to leave, but I love what Kimberly said. You always want to be respectful to your colleagues. And I would never recommend someone to a colleague that I felt would not be a good fit. And I would expect the same, So I love that you mentioned that, Kimberly, because I think it is so imperative that we're respectful to each other and that we collaborate in these tough times.
Jeff?
Oh, yeah, I think that, Maggie mentioned teacher retention as a goal. I think what happens is teacher retention, the idea of teacher retention becomes an afterthought. It becomes because we have the day-to-day school gets started, we hire our staff, we get into the school year. And so it has to be intentional, like every single day. Like that's the part of your culture that it just, so then it becomes just, that environment where people are attracted to, as Maggie was talking, your reputation precedes you, good or bad, and so you have to build it. And you have to establish that. And any principal that comes on new, you're going to lose some simply because there's change, and change is hard. And you have to, rarely did I have to ever remove people. They just peeled themselves off, and they were replaced by people that wanted to be there. And, and so after, I was a little bit different, Josh, than your experience. I was 14 years as a principal at one place at a high school. I was my last 14 years. So we moved the barge slowly. We probably reaped the benefits of our hard work because there was consistency, but it didn't come quickly. But then it did, and then it was then that success, and we didn't really have to worry about the competition as much as making sure that we weren't content, and that we wanted to continue to move the bar and to question our regularities and so forth. And then you got to the point where nobody wanted to leave. At that, then you're all of a sudden, we went from not having any applications to a stack of applications that people just, wanted to come. So I think there's a lot of things, but to answer your question, I have no problem recognizing talent wherever I go. And if it's an opportunity that's going to help that person and help the environment that they would go to, then I think it's as part of our leadership is to recognize talent and to tap people on the shoulder, because I bet everybody on the screen here tonight, if we were in it long enough, or whatever position we're in currently, we were here because someone believed in us and said, "Hey, have you thought about?" And you would really be good at. And so I think as long as you are, the integrity in those conversations and those relationships, I think that's just a natural part of this profession.
Chris?
Yeah, the concept of free agency, right? For me, it's a little bit more about following and pursuing passions. If I've got an educator who came to work at the middle school and realized that their true love was back in the 3rd grade, I'm going to do all that I can to make sure that they get into that 3rd grade classroom, hopefully in our district, because it's all about the team. But, really, if their heart is driving them in a direction, I want to support them. It's a people's first business, but it's a high stakes productivity business as well. So I've got to have somebody who's really committed here. I have been on site visits at other schools, and I've walked up to the principal and said, "I'm asking your permission to have this conversation. But please know that I'm going to have that conversation because I see something in one of your rock stars that would just be phenomenal with my team." And in a previous district, that's how I ended up building and turning around an entire math program, which was job number 1. Superintendent said, "Fix our math scores." I said, "Okay, I'm going to need the people." And we got the people and we got the programs, and lo and behold, we turned it completely around. But it was by recognizing that talent pool and being able to have those tough conversations. Now, with salary schedules being what they are and the lack of financial revenue and financial engine, it's really hard to attract somebody from a large district, such as a big city, to come to a school like mine or Dean's. We're a small regional school district. Our pay scale can't compete. But what can compete is culture, relationship, and pride. And if you've got those 3 parts of your economic engine firing, you're going to get that talented pool. You're going to get those applicants, and you're going to get people who want to leave places that they think aren't as good. And I like the concept of the free agent pool, though.
And you know what, Chris, just a quick 2 thoughts on that. For new administrators, new assistant principals, people that are in college right now to become an administrator, there is a dark side to this. Okay? There are administrators that if they call for a recommendation and they're the ankle biter teacher, they'll say, "Oh my God, they walk on fire. Don't take him from me. Please don't take him from me." I've experienced that. Or there's people that just go to your campus and see success, and they'll say, "Hey, you want to come on over and work here," without having the professional courtesy.
Mm-hmm.
So be aware that that's out there. Just like in any field, doesn't matter, lawyer, doctor, whatever, there's some shady stuff going on in every field. So we all need to be aware of it and take it from all the years of experience that you have right here. Just be on the lookout for that, because it's crucial that in the end, a situation like this, who suffers? Our kids. Our kids
100%.
suffer.
And then, Josh, we also have the opposite of that, which is some people don't want to let go of their talented people,
Mm.
and they will intentionally say, you know what, she's not ready. I remember one time I was trying to hire someone for a leadership role, and the person that gave me the recommendation said, you know, she has this, that. And so I said, okay, you know, thank you, I'll consider it. But I had the conversation with the woman that I was interviewing, and I told her, you know, you might want to reconsider your recommendation choices. I will not elaborate. I will tell you this. I see potential in you, and I believe that sometimes we may be not great in one place, but maybe in another setting we might be fantastic. And I want to take that chance on you because of what I see and what I feel. You know, we have that intrinsic feeling of, I'm going to bet on this person. I'm just going to do it. It's just a feeling that I have. And obviously the team love her as well. So, and she is now a principal. And so I'm like, there is that totally, Josh, that the people that will recommend us intentionally, some that are not amazing, and then there's the opposite, and we have to be careful of both.
Yeah,
Josh.
we've definitely got the gamut. Sorry, Kim.
No, I was just gonna, in the same vein of Josh was kind of offering some sage advice to newer administrators. Something that we hit on, and I just want to reiterate and emphasize and encourage new administrators to know that in your first year, it is very commonplace to have a high turnover rate. And sometimes, depending on, we were talking about metrics and culture and things of that nature, depending on your district leadership, they may or may not, find that to be, the norm and may have a difference of opinion. But from the experienced folks who are here on the screen, I just want to encourage you all that if that is the case for you, to understand that it, in most cases, is par for the course. This is something that is very normal that happens because change is difficult for individuals. We're creatures of habit. So don't be discouraged by the fact that you may have what some would consider a mass exodus. If anything, consider it, in most cases, to be a blessing that you're able to bring in individuals that are aligned with your vision for your school.
100%. You think back to all the lessons that we've learned in the experience and understanding that the organization is much more family oriented than it is. And, we've got relationships, right? And, sometimes, when there's, a family that's got a new mom or dad joining in, there's conflict that never existed before, and that is okay. You just have to have the right climate to work through it and grind. But hey, we're coming up on the end of our time together. 30 seconds down and dirty. Clock is ticking down to 0 on our game. Who is the one, or who is the influence that pushed you to become an educator, either a classroom teacher or an administrator? What do you want to say to them? 30 seconds. We'll start at the top. Jeff Springer.
Gosh, I've had so many mentors in my life, but by the time I became a principal, I felt like I had, because I was in a district that was so people rich. And I learned from every one of them. But what actually got me in education was my uncle, who had been a teacher and a coach. And I've kind of emulated his early career. He didn't stay in education near as long as I did. He went on to other things and probably made a lot more money. But I attribute to his encouragement and his example, and which ultimately led me to make that decision to be a teacher.
Powerful influence. Maggie.
I'm going to have to say my mom. In Mexico at the time, when she was 15, she had to make a choice of what to study. In Mexico, you choose your career at 15. And so they had a cap on teachers. She wanted to be a teacher. And if you were a woman and you wanted to be a teacher, you had to go into nursing if it was capped. So she went into nursing, but then she married my dad and they came to America undocumented. And so here her jobs were from McDonald's, Burger King, any fast food restaurants, the bakery. She struggled to get her higher education here, and eventually she became a teaching assistant here in Houston. So I always valued education because of her. When we were too poor to have a car, she would take me in the metro to the library after school, and she always pushed me to be growing and reading and learning. So definitely I have to say that it's been my mom, the one that's always seen in me more than I can even see in myself. So yeah.
Awesome. Family connection is key. Kimberly?
So thank you for this question. I would have to say Nancy Guzman. She was my principal mentor in Charlotte Mecklenburg School District. We were given the opportunity to participate in a program that our superintendent at the time created called strategic staffing, where you took low performing schools and it was a turnaround concept. And so we had some of the best educators in the district, and there was extra funding that was provided, professional development, et cetera. And we did amazing things at the school, turned it around. We were featured on Education Nation on NBC, and Arnie Duncan came to visit our school to see some of the great things that we were doing. But it was because of her leadership, her vision, her rule of, the first rule is to break all the rules. And so we did a lot of things that, were not necessarily seen as, we just did a lot of outside of the box types of things to make certain that our kids got what they needed. And it certainly made a tremendous difference. So I would absolutely have to say it would be Nancy Guzman.
Oh, fantastic. Josh?
Real quick before my answer, remember Sunday, don't forget Chris, Sunday, Unlock the Middle, Coach Hurt, Transformative Schools. Watch us this coming Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern, Unlock the Middle. Sean Hurt turns around schools, goes all over the country, making sure that we support team members, administration. Check us out. He's a great guy. He's part of the Fantastic Four that we provided with PD. And for me, real quick, number one, to be an educator, my mom, mi mamá, está allá arriba, upstairs. Gracias, mama, por todo. And second, to become an administrator was a lady that kept pushing me and pushing me and pushing me. God bless you. I love you, Millie Williams. Without you, I'm not me. Without my mama, I don't meet Millie Williams. So it's a ripple effect of time that created success. And every time I talk to my kids, they're either hearing Virginia or they're hearing Millie. They've made me one big funnel of success because of their advice. And most importantly, el amor. They push me ahead, and now it's rippled into my hijo's heart.
I'm going to round it out. It's really simple. It was a physics teacher in high school, Mr. Ron Wilmot at Shepherd Hill Regional High School. It wasn't how he taught. It's that he brought me and several of my friends down to lower level schools, pre-K, K1, and grade 2, and had us teach science to the kids. Now, I didn't realize that he was the influence until years later when I was in a physics class at a high school watching a lesson, and all of a sudden the light bulb just hit. Like, this is where my passion came from, to be an educator. I had no idea I wanted to do what I wanted to do, but it all came running back. And I loved how I interacted with those young kids, taught them how to break a cinder block on top of a bed of nails with a sledgehammer, and just the awe in their eyes. But I learned that in his class, but I was able to teach that. So a big shout out to Mr. Wilmot. And then, as an administrator, countless numbers of mentors from my supervising teachers when I was doing my practicum work, right on through my principal, Dr. Bradiotis, who said, "You're going to get certified in this cohort program in the city of Worcester." I said, "Okay, what's a cohort?" And lo and behold, here I am. So great influences out there, all of us. But hey, gang, we're coming up on 50 minutes together tonight, a little bit more with our pregame. Thank you so much, Maggie, Jeff, Kim, and of course, Josh. On behalf of the entire Unlock the Middle team, from Dean to AJ to Josh, right on up and through some of our other staple guest hosts. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Check us out on Sunday night, Unlock the Middle, 7 p.m. Got a great episode coming your way. And to all the moms out there, happy Mother's Day this weekend. Please take time to celebrate and honor the great experience that you've got as moms. And be well, everybody. We are hitting off the air. Bye, gang.